Everyone.
All right, welcome to the inaugural episode of I'm Not Actually a Gas Station Attendant.
Hello.
My name is Rich, and Ian is here with me.
Hi, I'm Ian.
So we'll both introduce ourselves, I guess. So I'm Rich. I've been involved in hardcore punk for close to 30 years now. Ian is my cousin. This podcast specifically is going to touch on 90s DIY hardcore culture and all the stupid shit we did and all the funny things we saw. And for the first few episodes, we are going to be talking about our band, CONSTATINE SANKATHI. Introduce yourself, Ian.
Hi, my name is Ian DiPertola, and Rich is my cousin, and I've been in DIY music for forever, too, and Rich and I have been, like, best friends as well as family members since forever.
Yep.
And, I don't know, I play drums.
And I play bass. So, we both started, well, Ian's been playing several instruments since he was a small child. I tried to take guitar lessons when I was 6. This just basically, I always wanted to be a musician, but I just had ADHD really bad, so that didn't necessarily work early on. So around 6, I tried to take guitar lessons. I couldn't focus enough to learn how to play a guitar, so I put it down. I think around 13 or 14, I picked up a guitar again. And in the shitty part of Michigan I lived in, I lent it to a friend, and they sold it, probably for crack. I know that sounds like, 14-year-old kids selling guitars for crack. That dude actually stole my bass later on, snuck into my house while my whole family was asleep, and took my bass. But I got it back that time. But when I got it back, there was a crack pipe in my bass case. So, anyways, yeah. Sorry.
By the way, we're from Michigan, but we're from the not cool part of Michigan. We're from the shittier west side of Michigan, southwest. So Detroit's a magical fantasy land that we were not aware of.
Yeah, and we're actually closer to Chicago than we are to Detroit, which is why both Ian and I at different points in our life ended up in Chicago.
That's right.
But so I was a metalhead. Ian was kind of that, but also you were.
I was a dork. I was a dork. I was like a skate punk dork. I loved the Dead Milkmen.
Yeah.
My famous story about this type of thing is I hung out with this weird skater kid who used to huff a lot of gasoline, and he frequented the juvenile home many, many times. He lent me a Dead Kennedys tape and a Ministry tape. I think it was The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste. And I just remember being like, I'm not ready for this. I am entirely too happy for this shit. So I just stuck to like what I knew, which was, generally
fun stuff.
Fun stuff. If it was jokey, I liked it a lot. So that's where I was at.
Yeah. So I was much more of a serious, I like thrash metal sort of dude.
I mean, I did too. Don't get me wrong, but I liked Anthrax.
Yeah,
a lot.
And don't get me wrong, I can appreciate humor, but yeah, Ian definitely at that point in his life was much more about humor than I probably was. But anyways, I'd started reading about hardcore punk in metal magazines, and I would occasionally buy stuff on the bigger labels at the time, stuff from bands like Agnostic Front and Murphy's Law and Cryptic Slaughter, if you want to count them. I do. And
that record fucking rules, man.
Yeah, Convicted's great.
Yep.
But with time, two of my high school friends, Joe and Dietrich, they were starting to go to Kalamazoo with regularity, which was about I don't know, a 30-40 minute drive from where we were at. And
and keep in mind, if you're from Michigan, it's not miles, it's time. So sorry.
Oh no. And they started going to shows and going to this brief, short-lived record store that was run a non-profit record store called Hole in the Wall.
Oh yeah. And it really was.
It was literally a hole in the wall. It was next small. It was next to a costume rental place. And it was really tiny, and they didn't have pricing like guns, so they put these little green circular stickers and wrote prices on things. So Joel Wick, who later went on to many bands, Sport, Jihad.
Was he in Makoto?
He ran the label Makoto.
Oh, okay.
Coyote.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Coyote. Sorry.
He ran it, and honestly, we have a lot owed to him for like the things he exposed us to. But
honestly, he was kind of more of like an AMRAP 90s noise rock guy. I mean, he brought in a lot of that stuff. So, he also brought in a lot of like just indie rock. So we had this weird kind of exposure to this stuff, a little more than just like, we didn't just listen to, this
to
only that and nothing else. We were aware of a lot more, whether we liked it or not. We were exposed to a lot of stuff. So.
Well, yeah. So just real quickly to describe the Kalamazoo scene, it started moving in a different direction by the time we were going to shows, but it was essentially a straight edge scene. It was a lot of youth crew nerds. Joel was actually that dude before we started going to shows, but yeah, he had sort of started branching out, and I think he liked a lot of I think he was far more smitten by the time we knew him with like AMRAP than he was, or Touch and Go than he was. With, New Age or Revelation or any of those labels. But yeah, it was a largely straight edge scene that was kind of moving away from being a largely straight edge scene. So anyways, Joe and Dietrich got me into stuff. And then I remember one afternoon hanging out in Dietrich's bedroom, listening to records like we often did. Joe walked in and was like, "All right, man, we need to do a band. It's going to be me and Rich can play bass." So we were supposed to have two basses initially. And then our friend Tony was going to play guitar, and Dietrich was going to play guitar, and they were just needed a drummer. I was like, "Oh, I got a drummer for us." So Ian's dad drove him out to Dietrich's pole barn and was worried about the kind of thugs that Ian was going to be playing music with, and then was like, "Oh, they're all just weirdo virgins."
Yeah, they're all just dorks like him, so this works out well.
Yeah. So we started a band initially called Oatsy, and after,
which was based on a World Industries skateboard ad that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but for some reason that was the name of the band.
Who was there even a skater featured in the ad? I don't remember.
It's not Dune.
Was it Sean Schiff? No, it wasn't.
No, I mean it's on the. Hold on, well, I'll just cut this silence out. Hold on. I want to know now. I forgot.
It might have been Dune, actually. Here we go. I actually have the ad on. Yeah, it was Dune.
Oh fuck. Okay.
Yeah, I have the ad on my Instagram.
Okay, so it was Dune.
Yeah, but Dietrich had lots of skate ads posted in his bedroom along with the occasional hardcore poster. And we chose Dune, and we started playing. The two bass lineup never actually happened. Joe just became our singer, and Tony and him shared an amp.
Yeah, Tony had a Marlboro amp, which might have had two two 12s in it. I'm not sure.
I don't even think so. I think it was one of those super old ungrounded ones.
Yes. Oh, yes. Everybody got shocked at the beginning of like our tenure in music. Everybody got shocked.
I kind of feel like that's true for everyone at that. Yeah. In fact, I remember at one point, Joe was toying with the tone on the amp, and Tony quickly sort of turned his headstock, and it was right at Joe's eye level, and poked Joe's eyeball with this string, which that would hurt and suck no matter what, but plus, because the amp was ungrounded, it electrocuted Joe's eye.
Initially we practiced at Dietrich's pole barn, which was big and dusty and echoey, and then we moved to Allegan, to my parents' house, to our cramped little weird U-shaped basement with a big heater in the middle of it, so I kind of it was tucked away in the corner while Tony was tucked on the other side, and Dietrich we're all in like separate corners, I remember, for some reason. But it was... Yeah,
I think I was at one point behind you. But I had a really tiny practice amp, which thanks to Dietrich's mom, she bought us a bass amp so that we could sound better. I guess Dietrich had talked her into buying a bass amp for the band. So we had one of those PV like bass/keyboard amps, 115s. They sound good. They sounded really good, actually.
They're workhorses.
Yeah. So, anyways, we did that for a while. Not a whole lot to go into. And then in Kalamazoo proper, Chris, who was in Constantine, was another founding member of Constantine Sankathi, did a band called Denial. Real quickly, with Otzi changed our name to Free Soul. Kind of started trying to be Soul Side, but shitty Soul Side. We played 2 shows and then broke up promptly. Chris did a band called Denial with our good friend Andy Cornell and our friend Josh Brockmeyer and another friend of ours named Saul. And they probably played 2 or 3 shows. And then I think Chris did another band that played 1 show, but I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. But so anyways, all of that was brewing up, I guess, all over the place. And then we just, I don't know, there was a process probably of about 3 years between when we started playing together and going to shows and getting Constantine Sankathi going. I don't know. Do you have any...
Well, I mean, we should just talk about the 2 shows real quick that we played as Free Soul. We played with... Okay, we played in a barn in Otsego, Michigan, at some
which is a bedroom community of Kalamazoo.
Yes, it's still pretty. I've driven by there a few years ago, and it's still like beautiful out there. So there's this barn out there. There's some weird old drunk punk dude was like, "I do shows in my house." So we did a show there. We practiced for a long time. Long story short, it was disastrous.
Yep.
And we ended up ripping up an American flag while I did the Star Spangled Banner on guitar. and
Joe recited some poetry.
Yeah, it was not good. We were pretty crestfallen about that. And then we ended up playing a weird Allegan festival called the Bridge Fest, because Allegan has a bridge. Better have a festival about it. So that was actually a kind of oddly successful show because we played on a very big stage. We had a proper sound man. It was weird. I think that was the first time we had actually heard what we sounded like. You know what I mean? Like it actually was like, oh, this is what it sounds like. And but by that time we were as tight as we could be. Yeah. And Joe did the whole stick the head in the bass drum thing and was rolling around on the ground. We gave him a show. And then we promptly just kind of evaporated, I think, because Dietrich wanted a girlfriend.
Dietrich got a girlfriend, but also Joe was getting ready to go to college. So he didn't, and all of a sudden he was going to be in Kalamazoo a lot more than we were. So he was going to be like hanging out with people and, he was too cool for us.
Big man on campus, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, all of that led up to Constantine Sankathi. That just sort of happened. Ian was always going to be the drummer pretty much no matter what, because he was the best drummer we knew, which that sounds offensive, but I don't mean any offense by it. Like, I mean, there were other people, but yeah, Ian was by far the best. He hit the hardest and was the most solid. But yeah, so there was we just, we ended up doing a thing. I think we formed, or at least started talking about forming the band at another short-lived venue in Kalamazoo, Michigan called Dagobah Square. It may have been, I don't remember what show it was at. It might have been I saw Shellac there. I think it was their first out-of-state show, actually.
I'm still kicking myself for missing that, by the way. Yeah,
it was a good. Honestly, it blew me away. I wasn't knowing what to expect. Bricklayer Cake played it, which I'd have to revisit that, but they were pretty fucking boring to me at that point in my life. And then there was a band that was kind of a Dinosaur Jr. ripoff, but I forget their name. Silkworm, I want to say their name was, maybe. I don't know. I think they were from Chicago or somewhere like that. But yeah, so we started, again, very briefly practicing in Ian's basement. I don't know.
We bounced around, like we started in my basement, and then for some reason moved. I don't know. I think we moved to Chris. Did we move to Chris's house?
We definitely did at one point. It
was very jumbled. I don't understand why that happened, but
I think it was just your parents were by that point tired of hosting your musical endeavors, probably.
Understandable.
Understandably, yeah. And plus, you were still, you might have been a sophomore or junior in high school by that point. Yeah. And I was probably a senior getting ready to graduate. And so we were all going to be spending way more, like 3 of us were going to be in Kalamazoo a lot more than anywhere else.
Right.
Chris was a high school kid as well. But yeah, we just sort of, I think we practiced at Ian's, and then we practiced at Chris's, and it just, I don't know how we didn't break up within the first month, honestly, but it just somehow happened. Like,
it was weird, yeah.
And not for anything against it, not as any sort of like slam on anyone else in the band. It was just like we were young, and that kind of stuff never lasts. And honestly, in the grand scheme of things, we were a band for 2 years, so it seemed like forever during the time we were a band. But
but the thing
really
is,
wasn't that long.
I feel like with all the bands before that, like, you guys were like high school friends for a good long while. Yeah. And for some reason, like, I know why nobody wanted to drive all the way back to where you guys lived, like from Allegan. So like they'd stay the weekend and we'd watch MTV all weekend, but then we'd go sleep in the smallest room possible together. We didn't have to do that, but we did that. And I feel like there was a kind of a weird, like, we have to be close to play music, which that's never left me, quite honestly. And
well, it's interesting when you're a teenage kid, especially when you're, we weren't jocks, like, we were skaters with varying degrees of ability. Me being the worst by far, but like, by the time we started the band, I think Chris was pretty well phased out of skating. I think Chris was kind of a like freestyler, like kind of kid for a while with skateboarding. But but when you're young, you're not necessarily obsessed with girls. At least I wasn't. And, Joe had a pretty consistent girlfriend by that point in time, but like it was at the end of the day, us hanging out and playing music together I think in some ways was more important than his.
It was the only thing. Yeah. It was kind of the only thing at the time.
Yeah, and for me and you, I mean, we definitely. I mean, Chris and Joe had girlfriends, but again, it wasn't a priority at that age, thankfully.
Right.
Because if you make that a priority at such a young age, I mean, it ends up kind of making you miserable eventually. But that's my theory anyway.
I mean, like we saw a lot of people in our respective hometowns that would just they had that person they were with, and they ended up like getting them pregnant and get married, and that's it. You're done. That's so it was kind of like almost a little wary of that. Like,
yeah,
I don't want to go down that road because that's kind of what you do in the Midwest. That's it. Get a job, have a couple kids.
And I kind of personally, I wanted a girlfriend who was into the same shit I was in, too.
Right.
Which I guess, truthfully, every girl I've dated to one degree or another had those common interests, So but you don't find that when you're in small town Michigan high schools. I mean,
no.
I think there was a girl who was into metal who kind of had a crush on me, but I wasn't into her. I didn't want to date a girl who was into Sepultura. I wanted to date a girl who was into fucking Blatz and the Blatz filth shit split.
Which again, considering what the music genre we're talking about and what we played. Yeah, that's what we were listening to. We were listening to the Blatz Filth Split and Minutemen and Alice Donut and all this other stuff and
then bands bands like Lincoln and Resurrection and Rorschach, and it was all over the place. Real quick, just to I guess this inaugural episode's pretty much just going to be a sort of mission statement for us, because it's really just kind of an intro, hey, how are you guys doing? This is who we are. But the term emo is fucking so corny, and in most of what people see as emo in 2021 is it's fucking college rock. Just go listen to fucking Replacements. It's cool, nothing wrong with that, but fuck, dude. I like punk, hardcore, and I like I mean, not that the Replacements didn't have some punk songs, but you know what I'm saying,
right?
But yeah, I guess part of the reason we're doing this is simply because there isn't really anything that touches on this world, kind of it seemed to be something that was really huge in the Midwest specifically, bands like Current and Jihad and Cap and Jazz. It was all disparate bands, but they were all it was all punk and
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, we've had this discussion before many times, and it belongs here as especially with Kalamazoo is it didn't matter what it was as long as it was kind of under that umbrella, which to us it seemed like this was all under that umbrella. It was not so oh, this fits nicely in this box or whatever, and I can only listen to this.
Yeah, because there was there weren't very many of us, and some of us would agree on the same bands, and I think that there was probably a couple of bands that pretty much every single one of us in town all liked.
Yeah.
A good example of that would be the German band Acme. Yeah. Strangely, our pop punk friends loved it. Everyone really, really liked the Acme 7-inch for some reason. But to the degree that Jihad, their whole what they were doing was, their mission statement was basically to sound like Acme. So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were things like that, but there were not a single one of us really sounded alike. I mean,
no.
There was Jihad, which was kind of metallic, moshy, kind of whatever, hardcore. And then there was Ordination of Aaron, which they were a rock band. I mean, they were hardcore kids, but their music was, rock music.
Yeah.
And then there was Fletcher, which most of you probably never heard of, but they were kind of a pop punk band.
They were more kind of leaning towards the Seattle sound. They had a toe in it, mixed with a little bit more of like, you know, the stuff you might hear on a Lookout comp that's not just, you know, Crimp Shrine and shit like that.
Yeah.
A little slower than that, a little rockier than that, but they were a college indie rock band. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, that just happened to be, at least one of them was really heavily into, you know, punk. So the bassist was like a Lookout dude, Paul. At some point we'll probably try to talk to Paul because he's a great dude. But like, then the drummer, I think he was from Detroit, and I think he was kind of like, maybe, and I could be wrong on this, but kind of a straight edge kid who moved to Kalamazoo and just wanted to play drums in a band. And then the guitarist / singer Skip was definitely like, his favorite band was Nirvana, and I think, you know, somewhere in that he really liked Jawbreaker, so that probably fed into it. But none of us, you know, I think that living in a place like that, for anyone else who's lived in these sort of small towns, you either get everyone all on the same page, like musically, or you get everyone on the same page ideologically. And
which
that's what we did.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. And don't get me wrong, we were kind of like snooty shitheads about certain things too. Mm-hmm. But I mean, but we still really tried to like just embrace whatever was happening around us, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if you put on a show, if you put on a house show in Kalamazoo, people would fucking show up. It didn't matter, and like the bills would just be
all over the
place always, you know, which was like, which from my point of view, like when I eventually moved to other towns, that was not the case, and I was always really like taken aback, like, wow, really, you're not gonna have like, you know, it's just a pop punk band, some avant-garde noise outfit, and then like some hardcore band. What? Why not? You know?
Well, I moved to Chicago after Constantine broke up, and I'm not saying there weren't some kind of strangely, you know, band like bills that were kind of mismatched or whatever, sort of diverse bills.
Yeah.
But like, it was probably the first time I'd ever been a place where it was like, oh yeah, you know, like, you don't ever have to go to a show to see a band you don't want to see. Like, you can still go to a show every week or two very easily, and probably several shows in that period, and never have to see a ska band, you know, or whatever, you know.
Which I did end up seeing Mustard Plug at least once.
Oh yeah,
in Kalamazoo. So, and I actually thought it was great at the time.
I was bummed on Mustard Plug, but no offense to Mustard Plug, really, because it was just that, like, I was grumpy even at 17, and I saw them, and all the children were so happy, and it bummed me out so bad.
Hey, they threw cream of wheat at me, and I thought that was funny, so, like, I'm on board. You know?
Oh, wait, did you saw them probably a different time than I saw them. I saw them at Dagobah Square. I want to say maybe with 15, but maybe Garden Variety, I think, played it.
Oh, God. We saw Garden Variety so many fucking times. I can't, like, I thought I saw him at Club Soda. It's
quite possible. Yeah, because there was that kid that was kind of into stuff that you went to high school with, whose parents were like lawyers or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And was really wasn't he into, what candy was it that he was really stoked on?
I don't remember.
I feel like that was one of the things I remember about him was he liked Junior Mints or something weird like that.
Hey, spoiler alert, he ended up being a lawyer.
Oh, good on him.
Anyway, so like we got together, we practiced many times, and we ended up writing songs, and some of them lyrically were based on real life things like having to wax the boat.
Yeah.
Because we practiced at my friend John's house, and my friend John, his grandpa owned this huge complex, and he had a giant boat.
Yep.
And we had to help him wax it in lieu of pay for letting us practice at his place, because he was like that. And so that's why if you look on our demo stuff, there's a song called Waxing the Boat. That's what it comes from.
Which was recorded in the bomb shelter, which was the literal bomb shelter in Chris's family house's basement. And it was weird. We recorded it. We probably, if we had had better headphones, we probably would have had a better recording. But
it was recorded on a Tascam Porta 3 Porta Studio. With our mixer was a PVPA head, and our headphones were literally like the shittiest Walkman. Like the small, like not covering the ears, but like you had to wedge them closer to your head just to hear what the fuck was going on. And plus, I was too dumb to say, hey, maybe I should take the whole apparatus out of the room so you can, hear it because we have long enough mic, whatever. Like there were so many things that I wish I would have done better, but we had to borrow stuff in order to like record this. We had to borrow microphones. I think we had to borrow an amp. I definitely had to borrow a cymbal or two.
I feel like Chris recorded his guitar through a bass amp.
He did. It was a small combo amp, and it was. I remember it being a little finicky because when you would hit the pedal, I think he had like a Boss DS1 or something, and those are kind of.
He had a feedbacker pedal.
Oh, the Boss
was one of those distortion that you could, which is a pretty awesome pedal. Honestly, I wonder what happened to it.
Which he never actually used in the capacity that it he never used that feedback part. But so I think that kind of attributes to why that demo sounds a little more chaotic than it actually was because times drifted. I think we recorded the drums. And then, the guitar kind of bled in to the drum track just so Chris could follow himself. Which, and then Rich had to,
I think I was direct into
direct into the PV head, into the tape machine, which, oh boy.
Well, and I remember, initially we were trying to do it with those Walkman headphones, and, Chris was freaking us like, can you figure this out? He was getting really frustrated with me. I couldn't hear myself, and I was just about to cry. I was so bummed. And
not in an emo way either.
No, it was bad. But so then we just played the track out loud, through loudspeakers, and then I could actually hear what was going on, and I could actually contribute the bass lines like I was supposed to.
And then for some reason, they needed to record the vocals at my house. I don't remember why. Probably because Chris's mom didn't want to hear them screaming.
Yeah.
But, so we went to my house, and I set up, the tape machine for them. I put the mic in. I set the levels, and then Rich and I had to wait outside, sitting on his car, and just listen to just random screams.
Well, and he sounded like
Ren.
Yeah, he sounded like Ren. Like Joe sounded like Ren, and then Chris just did those sort of weird kind of.
So he stood behind him and just kind of went, and that's why it sounds like that. That's why it sounds like it does.
Yeah, and we got that all together and played our first show pretty quickly. Our first show was with Cap and Jazz, and Antioch Arrow was supposed to play it, but I guess they broke down or something in Nebraska or somewhere.
Which by the way, that was a bummer because we were excited and it was funny. I don't remember having heard them.
Who, Antioch Arrow?
Yeah, at the time I don't remember.
No, I'm pretty sure you had. Cap and Jazz was new to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was funny because I remember the pre-internet, people are like, I heard they just run around and just let their guitars feedback and they just flail their arms around and they don't actually play. It's crazy, which is not true. I remember seeing videos of them and they did actually recreate what they did on that fucked up In Love with Jets record, which I love that record. Don't get me wrong, but it's it was just really funny that was controversial or whatever.
Yeah, well, and I think that to a degree, I wanted to, without having ever saw Antioch Arrow, I wanted to perform like I heard that they performed.
Yeah, yeah.
But it didn't. Yeah, that got there was a kibosh put on that pretty quickly. Like, no, you have to play your instrument.
Well, I mean, our very first show was a nice show. We did the thing. We did our parts. I think the most that happened was like my cymbal stand fell over, but not because of craziness.
You were trying to, you weren't standing on the bass drum. And
no, I think the floor was just a little lumpy and it just fell over. And so that show like really went off without a bang or a hitch. It just kind of was like, well, we played that and it was fine.
Yeah, but, I think we all had a commitment to sounding good at that show.
Yeah, and but I mean that's why it wasn't that memorable. But like you said before, like apparently other people really liked it.
Yeah. The way I mean, take this with a grain of salt, but so Chris, pretty quickly after we recorded our demo and did our first show, Chris went to visit his grandparents somewhere in Illinois, like somewhere downstate. And, we were all just kind of in limbo, working and doing whatever. I was living with my grandparents, which was about 10 or 15 minutes outside of Kalamazoo. And Joe was in Kalamazoo, I guess probably working like I was working. And I didn't have a car. So it was sort of a weird time and place. But, like, I don't know. Like, it was hard to say. Like, I didn't know if Chris wanted to do the band. Like, and, he was out in the middle of nowhere, and we weren't all communicating. So, but anyways, the story is Joe and his girlfriend followed Heavens to Betsy, I want to say, around the Midwest a little bit. Saw them in Madison, and Cap'n Jazz was booked to play the show. And one of the members, possibly Davey, but I don't remember who it was, went up to Joe. He's like, "Oh, you're in that band, CONSTATINE SANKATHI. I love your band, blah, blah, blah." So there were always those weird moments where we would receive some sort of, like someone would gas us up, sometimes without even knowing they were gassing us up, that would keep us going when times were kind of like, oh, we don't know what's happening next,
Yeah.
But we didn't know what was happening. And then Chris came back, and then we played with Rye Coalition, then simply known as Rye. It was us and Jihad and Rye. And I don't know, it was a cool show. That one we definitely kind of went off a little bit. And
was that the
one where
the Barbie doll one?
Yeah. Joe and Chris had somehow come upon a bunch of Barbie dolls, and they put them on the floor. And while we were playing, we were going to stomp on the Barbie dolls as a means of like saying that that the beauty standards society has set for women is wrong. Blah blah blah. I don't know. It probably could have come off as vaguely misogynistic, but I can assure you that wasn't what the goal, what we were trying to do. Oh, and our friend Andy, who still great friend of ours, he was playing second guitar. But that, so we played 2 shows, and then I guess we went on to our first out of town show at that point.
We should talk about the Grand Rapids show, because that was a really good one, and we're only at 40 minutes, so we're pretty good.
Oh, real quick though, I thought you said that we talked about was Columbus
that was the out of town. Yeah, that was we start with the out of town show.
Okay, that works. Yeah, we can talk about GR for sure.
Yeah.
So and we'd made it. It's weird to be in a band when you're a kid and have people actually telling you that you're good, or that they like you, like for me as someone who, I was never the cool kid in high school. Pretty girls, no girls really were interested in me,
Yeah.
Not that really mattered, because I wasn't all that interested in girls either. But it's just interesting when you're in that position where you're making all these friends. It was kind of intoxicating,
Yeah.
But yeah, so we made friends with some people, an hour north of us in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they booked us. Well, no, we just kind of hopped on. Our friend Jason in Grand Rapids told us, hey, we're Naked Aggression is playing Saturday night. Why don't you come out and you can hop on the show? And we were like, okay. So we showed up, borrowed people's equipment, and
it should be said that Grand Rapids is a little different than Kalamazoo as far as, I mean, we don't need to go into the whole history of it, but
it was much more of a more capital PUNK punk. It wasn't kids with horn rimmed glasses, Malcolm X sort of glasses, talking about sexism and politics and this and that and the other. It was a bunch of dudes who wanted to, smash the system and blah blah blah.
It was pretty crusty, is the point. It was real.
Yeah. Hey, let me go pee real quick.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
All right, we're back.
Yeah, so we Grand Rapids was kind of a crust punk town. And we didn't care, we just wanted to play. And I think our whole goal, we didn't give a shit about how we sounded. We didn't give a shit about anything. It was just go nuts. And
we kind of read the room, as it were. We were like,
yeah,
well, this is not going to be one of those shows where we're going to hand out the lyrics printed on Xerox paper. We're just going to fucking...
We brought the show to the show. I think that's a Wayne Kramer quote.
So yeah, it was Naked Aggression, us, already a weird pairing as it is.
Hellbender kind of hopped on too.
Hellbender popped on at the very end, which was even weirder, but actually kind of went along with us. It was oh, okay, that makes sense. But then it was another just super crusty band. Mm-hmm. And then, drum roll please, a Christian metal band. I guess they're
Bones of Adam.
Bones of Adam.
Yeah.
Which they were the most out of place, and nobody's sure how they got on there, but they did.
I think they provided the PA.
Well, there you go. And they also provided a TV with nothing but static on it, which the singer would menacingly sit on. And they also brought along their own cheering section, which was two dudes. One dude had a floor-length black duster with a cross, I believe, drawn in chalk on the back of it, and then another shaved head, a little rounder gentleman in overalls.
There was also, I think, a young girl that was there, a young lady. She was wearing one of those Harley Davidson shirts with lightning all over print.
So obviously that they came up and they announced. It was very clear that they were, the Christian metal band at the show, and everybody's like, nope. But except for the three people who were very excited to see them, as they were each song they would sort of pray mosh while they played, and everybody just stood back and was just like, what is going on?
Well, the best part I remember is the singer. I was like, this has got to be a joke. This is not a Christian metal band. And then in between songs, the guy gives a starts talking about the liberal media and how Jesus Christ is our savior. And some punk way in the back yells, Jesus can suck my ass. To which the singer's like, yeah, well, he put nails through his wrist for you, buddy. Which,
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. So I don't remember. It was just a weird, and like I said, we borrowed people's equipment, which was very disrespectful in the way they reacted.
Yeah. So we get on stage, and I think within a half a song,
we opened with Thanks for the Candy. Yeah. And at the end, I'm like, as it's I'm like running backwards, not watching where I'm going. I think I somehow or another, my foot got caught up in the cord on Chris's amp head, which I don't know if it was even his amp head. I don't know if
No. My dude runs across the stage and takes my drum set.
Yep.
And then takes the head that I believe Chris was borrowing off the fucking stage, and everything it's like, he's kind of like the Sandman, just sweeping everything away, and we're like, I'm just sitting there with half a drum set going, oh, and Rich is just laying in a pile of gear, and like,
didn't someone say something?
Yeah, somebody's like, all right, now it's a show. Like, they were fucking stoked. And we're like, okay, pardon us while we reset all of our crappy equipment back up.
So 5 minutes later.
Yeah, right. 5 minutes later, we set everything back up, and then the next song starts. And, keep in mind, people were, like, circle pitting while we're playing,
People were
too.
very drunk.
They were very drunk and very excited that somebody was playing kind of fast and weren't a Christian metal band. So they're running around in circles. It was a black and white checkered tile floor, and they're just spilling tons of beer all over the floor. And at some point, Rich is playing, and I watch him, like, again, back off the stage. He's like looking at us while he's playing, and there's people just running in circles, and he's trying to play, and he's like Flintstone running in place, like he's just trying not to fall.
In malt liquor.
Yeah, in malt liquor while playing, and we're just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, it wasn't bad, it was just insane.
Yeah.
And I don't think it got any better from there. It was just constant.
At one point, and I don't think we played a very long set. It might have been 5 or 10 minutes of actual music. But like at one point, some man off the street, like, to put it delicately, a hobo. He had a one of those mouth harps and was jamming with us while we played.
This was pre the harmonica from the second 7-inch. Keep in mind, to you.
Yeah.
People keeping score out there.
I don't even know if we had a horn yet. I don't even know if we had a horn yet. Honestly.
Yeah, Joe might have forgot it for that show. So
I don't feel like we had one until probably 5 or 6 shows in. At some point, Joe had a roommate named Jeff who had a trombone and was like, "Oh, you can have this if you want." And Joe's like, "Oh man, Jeff showed me some mouth movements on the trombone. I'm gonna bring trombone into the band." I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, "Well, I don't know," but like, but I'll like, "Oh, Nation of Ulysses is cool.
Yeah,
they have horns. Let's do it. Fuck it."
Yeah,
and
let's keep in mind.
Looked back.
we just kept sliding on down the road there. But let's also keep in mind, speaking of that, there were certain things that happened in this band, especially at the beginning, and we'll rewind back a little bit to the recording of the demo. I just remember choices like the weird girl singing the weird songs in between the parts.
Oh yes,
and then at the end of the recording session where they did the vocals, Joe and Chris wanted to do some sort of spoken word thing, which involved a Pringles can and some bongos, and everybody read from a thing, which like that. I'm just bringing this up because that was one of those like, oh, I don't really know, but okay, I guess. And thankfully, that part got deleted from the demo.
I think they were all pretty happy with that being deleted as well. Yeah, it was possibly. I mean, I'd have to hear it now, which thankfully I can't. But it was probably a little cringy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But yeah, like kids, we took chances. I'll say that. And another thing that happened that night when we recorded the demo. To backtrack for a second, there were 2 demos recorded that night.
Oh yeah.
Chris had another band he sang in with our friend Joey and I don't think Josh was in it. Our friend Joey and our friend Saul, and then the guitarist was a dude who was in that band OK Go. I forget his fucking name every time. I forget. Well, I'll look it up. You can edit out
Okay.
a minute on. Let's see here. I think his name was Tim. But
That sounds about right.
Go. Let's see. Tim Nordwind. He played bass in OK Go. He played guitar, and I don't even remember the name of the band, honestly. But
oh yeah. Wait, that wasn't the album leaf, was it?
No. Well,
Okay.
he might have been. They that's the thing. I think they played one show, and they basically like changed their name every other week for the very brief period they were a band.
But eventually they did try to change it to the album leaf, which, for the nerds out there, ended up being the solo project of Jimmy LaVale of Tristeza and the Locust, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that name has traveled a long way.
Yeah, probably longer than anything any of the rest of us have done thematically anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, so there were 2 demos recorded. I recorded, and I wasn't straight edge yet. And I got stoned out in the garage with a couple of people. And I just remember, like, I think you went to Joe's apartment after we recorded our demo. You basically just, like, set up the Tascam for Chris. It was like, okay, so, here's how you work it.
Yep.
And I think they recorded it all completely live. Yeah. But I was stoned out of my gourd. And I think that, to me, it sounded amazing. And I was like, oh, Chris, you guys sound so good. But I'm pretty sure they didn't sound so good. But I was, very high. I just remember I took a hit off of a pipe, and I coughed, and I couldn't stop coughing. So I walked out of the garage and kept coughing, walking down the basement to Chris's bedroom, laid down on his bed, kept coughing, and then the coughing subsided, and there was a supreme relaxation I had never known.
Wow.
Yeah. But also a supreme paranoia I had known all my life, but amplified. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we really have much more to talk. I mean, it's kind of just an introductory episode.
Yeah, I mean, so that was pretty much it. We recorded it. We recorded our demo. We played a couple shows. Things started catching steam.
Friends.
We made some friends. We started making some contacts. And then eventually we got to go play out of town, which is where we will start on our next episode.
Yep.
So thank you for listening. I hope you want to listen to more of it, because we got more of it, trust me.
It gets more exciting, too.
It does. Yes, it does. Please. Yeah, the first episode's never good.
All right. Signing off.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.